Could you please put your hands together and welcome Haere to the stage.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed judges. Ko Travelling Circus toko ingoa. Introducing Caleb, Stephanie, Rachel, Philippa and Grayson. I'm Don. We are Travelling Circus. Travel fair without fear. How might we ensure an equitable future in transport to avert climate disaster? Meet our pal Wes, whom I might add is a real person. Wes was integral to our stakeholder meetings and is at the core of what our concept is. Wes represents a demographic that is often overlooked and under-resourced across society, challenged by mobility issues that we, as able-bodied people, sometimes take for granted. So, as we sit here tonight and as we share, I really want all of us to keep one thing at the forefront of our minds. Who is the Wes in your life?
Over 170,000 people in Tamaki Makaurau are mobility impaired. These people face enormous challenges when it comes to moving around our city. Did you know that 40% of trips are under 2 kilometres? But even 500 metres can feel like a challenge for this group. There are extremely limited number of options for this group, and some can be declined up to 15 times when selecting options like Uber Assist, forcing them to rely heavily on private vehicles, which is costly for both them and the planet. Private vehicle use is responsible for 67% of transport emissions. So we need to encourage people and support them to move away from private vehicles. To do this, we need sufficient options for rideshare services and to leverage the existing network of movement. So we have designed a solution that addresses inequity in transport and reduces emissions.
Introducing Haere, where dignity is at the forefront. Our solution will utilise the same principles as AT Local, Total Mobility, Uber Access and Driving Miss Daisy schemes to enable a hybrid domestic freight and rideshare scheme. Vehicles are fit for purpose and cater to the needs of the mobility impaired customer and courier. Schedule your ride like you would schedule a courier. We will utilise existing and in-development technology to effectively and efficiently schedule the journey of the courier the night before. This will ensure passengers can be picked up and dropped off at their destinations in the most efficient way possible, and then the courier can continue with their deliveries. We spoke to NZ Post on how we can support them on their journey to becoming carbon neutral by 2030, and further validate our idea. The 3 key opportunities are: 1, we're going to support NZ Post to lead their workforce in this major shift in BAU and support the change in their business structure. 2, we've allowed for the fit-out and OPEX costs in our modelling, and we will utilise the same process NZ Post used to roll out their EV fleet, which will ensure their contractor workforce who have owner-operated vehicles are supported. And finally, the efficient fit-out will ensure minimal space is lost for parcels, and therefore productivity is marginally impacted. The passenger zone will also be available for storage when no bookings are made.
So how does Haere make economic sense, both for NZ Post and for the end user? Well, NZ Post plans to purchase carbon credits to offset their emissions. At current rates, this will cost them almost $10 million per year. Haere is an opportunity for NZ Post to effectively reduce their emissions by the same amount of carbon that was saved by avoiding private vehicle use. For the end user, the cost of the service is easy to budget. 1 ride, $1. A fraction of the cost of current alternatives. This will be matched with another $1 in subsidies by ACC, which is in line with current mobility subsidy rates, but at a much cheaper cost. Capturing just 5% of potential users with a fleet of 600 vans results in a reasonable 14 pickups per van per day. This would save $1.8 million in carbon credits and yield $2.5 million in profit per year, after taking into account the fit-out, operational and lending costs estimated to launch this initiative. The costs shown here are annualised. In reality, there's a much larger upfront cost with an estimated return on investment within 6 years. The only thing preventing this concept scaling by the remaining 95% is the number of vans available. There is huge potential for other companies with residential fleets to get on board too.
The main and most important impact is that dignity is maintained for users. Haere makes for a more independent, pleasurable and dignified experience. It provides mobility freedom, allowing for more active participation in the community. It also keeps users mobile, and that maintains the flow of people from place to place. And as we all know, social interaction and mobility are key for well-being. Haere means less vehicles on the road, as it utilises existing vehicles by combining rideshare and freight to provide a service which reframes how and where you drive. It's also an extra option available for the mobility to impaired to use that is cheaper and more reliable than what is currently on the market. Haere would mean more than 10,000 tonnes of carbon emissions can be avoided and takes over 8,000 cars off the road. It also has the impact of reducing vehicle miles travelled and reducing the energy consumed by several vehicles with single occupants. Haere can also eliminate wasteful driving, such as the search for parking at end of trips, or a traditional Uber or taxi having to come from another location across town, as Haere drivers would already be in the neighbourhood.
So, what's in it for NZ Post? Firstly, Haere is a new product that they can offer in their existing service zones. It's a new source of revenue, and it could help to offset some of the lost revenue from declining online shopping sales, which are already down 40% since lockdowns ended. It's a way for NZ Post to reduce emissions while also doing social good, providing another transport option for a group in society that is often overlooked in transport planning. And it makes them money. We estimate almost $7 million per year across 10 years, which is not too bad. And what does it mean for Wes? Haere allows Wes to travel short distances locally in a lower carbon, efficient manner, whether he's getting his haircut, going to his doctor's appointment, or going to the local cafe. He can use Haere instead of having to resort to a private car or more expensive taxi services. And if Wes is traveling further across town, he can be dropped off at the nearest bus stop or train station, giving him access to the public transport network. Haere means to go. And as our population ages, the number of people who are going to struggle to get out and about just to live their lives is only going to increase. So again, we ask all of you, who in your life needs help to Haere?
Thank you.
And now, well done. And now we'll throw this over to the judges for questions.
Thanks, team. I think that's a really unique idea. I do have a couple of questions. Just in terms of practicality, can you just clarify that the use, you said it had to be booked the night before, so I'm just kind of interested in, because obviously Uber is very instant, just your thoughts on the practicality of that. And I guess the other question for me was the 6-year return. What sort of uptake is that based on?
Could you repeat the first question?
Yeah, sorry.
There were 2 questions.
Yeah.
Oh, the first question was just in relation to my understanding that the trip had to be booked the night before, and just your thinking in terms of the practicality of that, because comparing to Uber, it's very instant. So had you kind of tested that out practically, how that might work for people?
I can take that. So yep, as our idea solution currently stands, it is a book in advance service, but what we found is the existing services available don't actually cater very well to people with mobility issues. So if you're in a wheelchair and you want to get an Uber, it is a massive hassle. We've got a guest in the audience tonight who has had Ubers cancel on him again and again and again and again because of his wheelchair, basically. So as our solution is scaled, we could look to a more on-demand service, but as it is currently, it's a book in advance service.
And to answer the second part of your question about the uptake, so that 6-year ROI is based on 600 vans across Auckland, and it's 5% of the eligible low mobility population. So in Auckland, that comes to about 8,500 people. So if you calculate that out, that's 14 trips per van per day, so more than doable, we think.
Thank you. I'm interested to know, what is the opportunity for riders to actually travel outside the service zone area of the courier?
So at this stage, our key focus is on that first and last mile. So through our kind of conversations with our key customers, through our development of our idea, we found that those were the key challenges. So it's really addressing that and making sure that they can access areas that, you know, are beyond 400 metres. That is where that kind of threshold and struggle really hits for those with mobility impairment.
Thanks, guys. So my question is, the underlying premise of this is the averted use of private vehicles, and I'm just interested in how you determined the level of private vehicle usage versus public transport, because that's the whole underlying premise, as I understand it, of this. So how did you sort of sense check that premise?
Yeah, so at the moment there are very few options for people who are mobility impaired, and they often rely on their private vehicle use or scheduling a service that is costly and has to travel with vans in particular from quite far. So it's just about taking those cars off the road and replacing it with a more sustainable option.
Oh, well done. Very, very impressive. Yeah, it's definitely a hugely underserved area of the population, and actually you've stumbled into an area that has yet to modernise as well. So it's like stepping back into, 20, 30 years ago. I had a question around the utilisation. So when you're calculating sort of the 8,000 potential users, had you taken daily utilisation into account, or is that represented in the 5%? And then also, have you cost modelled the loss of space in the vans to NZ Post?
Yep. So we have allowed for some operational sort of deficit in there. Obviously, the vans are not going to be as efficient if they're stopping and picking up people, and there's a reduced amount of space. So we've added some cost in for there. Obviously, we'd have to go forward with a trial to be able to actually determine the actual cost of running this service. The utilisation. I think it's based on, so we calculated that out using 5 days per week, so they wouldn't be using it every day for those 8,000 people. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks for those clarifications, guys. And now we're going to hand over to Brad, Brad's going to deliver some of your questions to the team.
Great questions, thank you, team. There's heaps coming through on the app, so keep them coming. I certainly won't be able to get to nearly all of them. But one great question here, which is around prioritisation. So how would New Zealand Post prioritise an individual over some of their delivery schedules? How have you worked through that?
So the concept is that it's a hybrid scheme. So although we're working closely with both customer and courier, it would be managed through that scheduling process up front and making sure that we're providing the best customer experience and the most efficient and effective journey.
Sounds like you're anticipating that one. What are the legal requirements for, I guess, a courier driver to be taking passengers? Have you looked through that one?
So part of our pilot scheme, we would investigate that further as we look to roll out 10 vehicles, so focusing on 3 different areas in Tamaki Makaurau, so North Shore, Central Auckland and South Auckland, and working with NZ Post and the champion couriers to understand those constraints and further improve our concept.
Great, and so it's just for advanced bookings, I understand. What would happen if you're outside the normal freight delivery programming?
So at the moment, it is advanced booking services, but as the solution evolves, we would look to have a more on-demand service that would work with the couriers moving around kind of on a more ad hoc basis. But at this stage, yes, advanced, so that we can work it into their BAU, which would be a huge challenge initially.
And so how do you schedule your return journey if you're focusing on the first and the last mile? How does that work? Does someone need to figure that out themselves, or was it?
So once again, we're targeting kind of clear appointments and activities, so you would roughly know your timing, and so you can work that in, and hence, once again, going back to book your ride like you would a courier. So there is obviously some organisation required.
Yeah. Well done. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, massive round of applause for Team Haere.